Timothy Janovsky. Is that
Yep, that's
Janovsky?
correct.
Okay.
Hmm.
Always want to make sure before I say. I'll introduce
All
you and then
good.
you can say your spiel, whatever personal
Sure.
spiel you have, and then
Okay.
we'll get started. But
Sounds good.
all right.
Just like
Awesome.
about me, right? Not personal
Yes.
spiel. Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like,
Yes.
okay.
So share your most
Excellent.
personal details, all
My
your
most personal details, my social
secrets.
security number. Yeah,
Yes.
got it.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like if you could just pull out your credit card right now and
Right. And
tell
just
us
give
the
everyone
security code, that'd be great,
be
actually.
perfect.
All right. Hello, listener. Welcome to another episode of We Read It One Night, the podcast where we talk about the books that make you want to stay up all night reading. I am Allison, your host. And today, to celebrate the holiday season, I am so glad to have US Today bestselling author, in my opinion, king of holiday rom-coms, Timothy Janovsky.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you having me on, and that is lovely. I will take the crown
Yeah.
that you bestowed on me. Um, yeah, I'm Timothy Janovsky, born and raised in New Jersey. I am a queer multidisciplinary storyteller, and I am the author of over 10 romance novels between sweet and spicy and contemporary and magical. And my most recent book is called A Mannequin for Christmas. And I'm
Yes.
excited to chat about it.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited to chat about it too. That's why, listener, I read A Mannequin for Christmas and I was like, this is the most delightful thing that I've read. It's very queer, hot, frosty, that like Lacey
Mhm.
Chabert Netflix movie from last year that was insane. This is also insane in the best, most Christmas magical way because it's about a literal mannequin that comes to life.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because so when I was coming up with the idea for A Mannequin for Christmas, which is about a struggling shop owner who doesn't want to face another Christmas alone, so he makes a wish on magic hour for the perfect man, and his shop mannequin kind of like magics to life. When I was coming up with the idea for this book, I was really inspired by like Barbie and like the movie Life Size that I was
Yeah.
really obsessed with as a kid.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I had a bunch of people DMing me around the holidays last year being like, "Have you watched this movie Hot Frosty? Have you watched this movie Hot Frosty?" And I was like, "No, I'm sorry, I haven't seen it." And I had already written this book, and they were like, "It's just like that book that you wrote." Because some of my early readers, like some
Yeah.
of my editor, like they had already read it, and so I was like, "Oh, that's
Yes.
so weird." And so I was like, "Okay, I think I have to wait until the book is out in the world, and then I can watch it and see how similar or different
Yeah.
it is." Because I was like, otherwise, I might be like, "Oh, dang, that was a really good idea. I wish
I
I
should
had written
change
that."
this. Yeah.
Yeah, or like, oh dang, I feel like I could have come up with a scene for this movie or whatever, you
Yeah.
know. So, but it was a very funny experience.
Yeah. It's so, I mean, what was in the water and whenever you had this idea and they had the idea, like they were
I
like
don't
inanimate
know.
objects. I mean, although I will say, and let me know if you disagree, I feel like there is like a trend in romance of like inanimate object comes to life, not just like even outside the holidays.
Oh yeah, I mean it's that like Beauty and the Beast effect, that kind of like
Yeah.
when you personify an object, or even like I know I have a lot of like millennial friends who had crushes on
Yeah.
like the animated Robin Hood growing up, like
Like the fox, like we're talking about
the
the fox,
fox.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
There is just like something, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's definitely a Beauty and the Beast effect for me though, because I kind of reference Beauty and the Beast throughout the book a little bit, and
Yeah.
specifically Belle's Enchanted Christmas, which was like on heavy rotation on VHS in my home as a child. Yeah, there's just like something interesting about like being newly human in a world that is kind of confounding, kind of wonderful, kind of scary. And it's, I don't know, I think it makes for really good fiction, whether it be a
Mhm.
movie or a book or whatever, because it is very fish out of water, but to the extreme.
Right.
Like it is the most outlandish, cartoonish it could possibly be, which leads to these like funny escapades and silly
Yeah.
little misunderstandings that kind of blow up to massive proportions. And I mean, I had so much fun writing it, so I have all the faith in the world that like the people who made Mannequin from, the 80s and
Yeah.
the people who made Hot Frosty were probably just like making themselves laugh.
Yeah.
Because that's really what I was trying to do with this one.
Yeah. That's so interesting to hear you talk about it in terms of Beauty and the Beast, because I don't think I've ever made that connection, like in terms of like the inanimate object sort of, even sort of like Pygmalion like esque things. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never made the that connection. That's really interesting.
Yeah, well, I was really interested when I pitched this book to my editor. I was like, "Hey, so I think I want to do a Christmas book inspired by like Barbie and the 1980 movie Mannequin." Okay, great. It's going to be set at Christmas time. Okay, great. I also want to write from the perspective of the mannequin. And she was like, what? Like, she was like, "You do it, and if it doesn't work, I'll let you know." And the thing that I was really excited about in doing that is that, like, I love that Pygmalion myth. I love My Fair Lady, which is
Mm.
where Henry, the main character of the story, gets his name from. Um, I
Oh,
just,
okay. I didn't put
yeah,
that together either. I love that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean I just like he is so Henry the character is mostly inspired by Henry Higgins from My Fair Lady
Hmm.
and Pygmalion the play. And then Aiden, I was like when my editor was like, "Okay, well how are you going to build this mannequin into a person, into a character that's not just like I was a robot or I was
Right.
plastic, whatever." And I was like, "Okay, so he's like one third Pinocchio, I want to be a real boy, one third Ariel, like I want to be part of your world, and like one third the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz, who like if I only had like if I only had
Yeah.
the facilities to kind of just like be
Yeah.
a functioning member of society. Does that open some doors for some like, does anything have the capacity to spring to life at any moment? Yes. But is it
Well,
also
why not?
whimsical and fun? I think so. But yeah, I had so much fun kind of just puzzle piecing these things together because I think the story boils down to perfection and the search for perfection.
Mhm.
And I find that theme comes up a lot in Pygmalion, in My Fair Lady, in these things that I kind of glommed onto very young. And now as an adult, I'm like, oh, like these chasing after the perfect man or the perfect job or the perfect family or the perfect Christmas, which I think a lot of people have high pressure on the holidays, is not attainable and maybe
Yeah.
not a worthwhile use of your time and energy. And so I kind of wanted to explore that in a modern setting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that, and I felt like it was, especially with how Henry deals with like his anxiety and the mental health rep in the book as well, felt very like relatable and accessible and attainable in terms of like everyone has those little, things that you over stress about. And,
Mhm.
with him, it was everything, particularly with his romantic relationship. He was stressing about everything, but
Literally
yeah,
everything.
especially romance. But
Yeah.
yeah, it felt very real and natural.
Oh, thanks. I feel like generally too when I pitched the story and my character of Aiden, who is the sprang to life mannequin, when I pitched to my editor and I said, it's like these three things and we're gonna put them in a blender and see what happens. What I realized is that like I as an author, like I'm neurodivergent, like I have ADHD, like other neurodivergencies across the board, and a lot of times that leads me to kind of ask a lot of questions of people. I don't really understand sometimes a social cue. Like there are just
Hmm.
things that are a little confusing. And so for me, writing the character of Aiden, who doesn't really know politeness or social codes or how
Yeah.
people maneuver through space or that if you get hit by a car, you die. Like these little things, I mean, not always, but you
Yeah.
could.
The little
Um,
things like getting hit by a car.
the little things like getting hit by
Yeah.
a car, and even in the book, he starts making a list of like that's titled "List of Things That Could Kill Me" because he doesn't understand that now he's mortal.
Yeah.
Like he's like, "Oh, I kind
Right.
of liked it better if my head popped off. You could just twist it back on." And he's
Right.
like, "Well, that doesn't work for people, so we're gonna need to figure out some
Yeah.
safety steps for you." So I ended up when I finished the book and edited the book, dedicating the book to like neurodivergent folk everywhere because within the character of Aiden, I got to pour a lot of my frustrations about living in a neurotypical world and sometimes not feeling heard or accommodated. Um, because I think what Aiden is doing is he has 4 weeks to experience true human love, or he goes back to being a mannequin. And for him, that's
Hmm.
like the most important thing in the world. But he doesn't understand body language. He doesn't understand
Right.
subtext. Like these are little things that like a lot of adults also struggle with. And maybe this is more of like a metaphorical, cartoonish way to explore those things. But I found it very cathartic to be able to do
Hmm.
that and feel like people were like having that kind of experience of like, oh, I'm kind of slipping this in throughout the
Yeah.
hijinks of like, I don't know, eating a whole stick of butter. Like, it's ridiculous, but
Racking up
it's
credit card debt.
racking up credit card
That
debt.
stressed me out, I will say.
Yeah, Aiden doesn't
Yeah.
understand credit limits or that there's not physical money,
Yeah.
associated with that.
You know what, Aiden? I don't understand Bitcoin, so we're in the same boat, basically.
I feel like at one point while I was putting this book together, I was like just starting to write down different things that I thought Aiden wouldn't understand and how funny they might
Hmm.
be in a scene. And a lot of them, me and my editor and people who read it early were like, okay, maybe this one's too far. Maybe this one's not really whatever. But the one that I was like really adamant that we kept is that there is a scene in the book where they go to a estate sale
Hmm.
and Aiden's very hungry and he sees like a bowl of fruit laid out and he like goes to eat something out of it. And Henry's like, don't eat that. And he's like, why? And he's like, because it's wax. And he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, it's wax fruit, like it's for decoration. And he's like, wait, so like a mannequin for food? And he's like, yeah, I guess, but like, what's your, like, what? He's like, that doesn't make any sense. And to me, like, I was
He's
like, oh,
right.
he's right. Why do we have waxed fruit? It's just
Yeah.
very silly. I know
Yeah.
there's like I don't know if she's a TikToker or an Instagrammer, but she pops up on my algorithm a lot where she's like, list of things I don't understand. And it's just like a bullet pointed list of
Yeah.
her being like, I mean, I can't even think of one now, but
No,
it's
yeah.
like, it's just hysterical.
Yeah. I feel like I know what you're talking. She has like the notes app in the background. It's like a green screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is comedy, and I know it's comedy, but also like, you're right.
You're like,
It
but also
doesn't
it's
make any
real.
sense. Yeah, it's real. It's so
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, I guess one of the things that are would also probably be cathartic for you as a writer, and then also were nice to read as for me as a reader, was that even though Aiden doesn't understand all this stuff, like he's not afraid to ask.
Hmm.
He kind of like lacks the like internalized embarrassment. And I mean, he develops that like a little bit as he's becoming more human, but like
Yeah.
especially in the beginning, he's like, "This doesn't make sense. What are we doing?" And it's like, and you're like, "Oh, I wish I could just like stand up and ask that so many times."
Yeah. A writer that I really admire, Sarah Rosh. She wrote like The Nightmare Before Christmas and this whole
Hmm.
series. We did an event together when Mannequin came out, and she said something along the lines that she was like, it was really refreshing to read a character who was so uncynical, who was so um, I know a lot of romance readers call it like the golden retriever energy, but she was like, that's turned up to 12, right? Like, this is a character who wants to believe the best in everyone because he
Yeah.
doesn't know the worst. And therefore, he's not self-conscious. He's not
Hmm.
embarrassed. He's not, and I think for good and for bad, he develops those
Right.
emotions over the course of the story because unfortunately they are just part of being human. But it was really liberating to write a character who could enter any room with full confidence
Yeah.
and just accept that a situation is what it is and not be addled with, oh, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? The ticking clock is
Hmm.
there for him the whole time because he has
Hmm.
this Cinderella caveat of, you want to stay human, you got to experience
Yeah.
love. But he's also like, okay, well, if I only have 4 weeks, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to learn
Yeah.
everything I can, and I'm going to have the best experience possible. Um, and I think that's definitely a lesson for me to just kind of throw myself into things more and
Yeah.
be more open.
Yeah. But one of the things that I really liked about this book, and that I was like, as I was reading, I was like, I really hope that he does this, and you did. But and this is gonna get a little spoilery for like the next 5 minutes, listener. So skip ahead. I mean, it has an HEA. You already knew that it's a romance novel, but
Hmm.
the fact that Aiden like goes off and like
Hmm.
lives in the world separate from Henry at the end of the
Hmm.
book, because that's something that I always struggle with these like I just came to life and I don't know what it's like to be a human. I'm a real boy,
Hmm.
books and movies is that I'm like, okay, but now their only frame of reference is the romantic relationship. And I am like a bah humbug. I don't know. I guess I overthink it too much. I'm too much of a realist where I'm like,
Hmm.
that's not actually healthy. No. I'm like, even though this is a book about an inanimate object coming to life, want I want like them to experience the world. So I really
Yeah.
appreciated that you added that in there because I guess like I feel like some people could get frustrated, as a reader, be like, oh, why did they break up? Like, if the deadline's over, like they should stay together. Why did they break up? But I appreciated that we had like a very short, he's lived his life.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I do think it is definitely perhaps a divisive choice. So if you're listening to
Hmm.
this and thinking about reading it, you've got to read it all the way to the end. So you can also have
Yeah.
an opinion. I definitely, when I plotted the book and pitched it to my editor, that was not the case. I was thinking in the same frame of reference, like once that deadline hits, like happily ever after is imminent on the horizon. But in writing from Aiden's perspective, I realized how sheltered that made him. Like he had such a limited purview of the world
Hmm.
only through the experiences that Henry could give him. And therefore, he needed to experience the world as an individual before he could be part of a couple. And that requires him to also make some mistakes, which I won't spoil in the time that elapses. Um, and I felt like that was so human of him.
Hmm.
And it made me kind of emotional, being like, oh, like sweet baby. Like they're just
Yeah.
this level of a character that I felt like I couldn't put him in a house with a white picket fence. Like there was just no way to
Yeah.
put him there on New Year's Eve. He needed to go out
Yeah.
and find his purpose. He's working from this very rudimentary list of how to be a human,
Right. Like a
like kind of
wiki
a wiki
how.
how,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. And, he satisfies all the other steps. Like I have a home, I have a whatever, I have food, I have shelter, but he doesn't have purpose. And I think that was
Hmm.
the one thing that I needed him to go out and find before I could let him settle down. And
Yeah.
even then, I think I do leave the ending of the story a little bit open for the reader to kind of paint the rest of Henry Aiden's life for them. But
Hmm.
yeah, I was writing towards the end of the book and thinking to myself, like, oh no, I think I'm gonna have to throw out those last, 6, 7 chapters I had planned
Hmm.
because the characters just took a hard right turn. And that
Hmm.
happens, which is like super frustrating as an author because you're
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
wait,
yeah.
I created you. Do what I
You're like, what are you
say.
doing? Get back there.
Get back inside the lines that I've already
Yeah.
drawn for you. But I think that's also the things that I end up being most proud of are the
Hmm.
things that organically pop out of telling the story the way it wants to be told and not the way I think it should be told.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I felt, because, yeah, especially with these kind of stories, like it's so easy because he's, like you said, he's such a golden retriever turned up to 12. And that can feel, there's like a childlike element to that, right? And
Hmm.
yeah. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, now he's got to go be an adult. And being an adult is messy. And I guess that kind of speaks to like the overall sort of trend in romance where I feel like there is a large contingent of vocal readers who like basically don't want characters to be flawed at all and like are like, oh, he did something wrong, so he must be a horrible person now and I can't believe he deserves an HEA, or whatever. But
I I think about this a lot. Um, I don't know what number book Mannequin is, but I'm sure I could do the math. But my third book that I put out, well, actually, my second book that I put out was called You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince, which was my
mhm.
very first Christmas novel, which was about, it was basically Schitt's Creek if it was a Hallmark Christmas movie. And also if David Rose was like truly insufferable. Um, and from the title of the book, You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince, you kind of know we're meeting this character not at his best.
Right.
And reader reception has been super lovely, and the book has continued to find its readers. But there are a lot of people who will close the book by chapter 4 because they're like, he's so snobby, he's so standoffish, he doesn't
Hmm.
understand. I think the contract the romance writer makes with its reader is that we're always going to leave these characters better than how you
Right.
find them. But I think the most impressionable experience I had as an author with that specifically was my third book, which is one of the things that I'm most proud of ever writing, which is called New Adult. Is about a character who makes a series of very, very bad mistakes and then makes a wish on a set of healing crystals to like jump to the good part so he can avoid the fallout.
Oh, yeah.
And he wakes up 7 years in the future and he has everything professionally he's ever dreamed of, but his family and his best friend slash love interest hate his guts. Like they will not speak to him, that he has nothing, and he doesn't know what happened in the intervening seven
Yeah.
years. And there were a lot of people that were like, this character, like, I can't, like, he just, that's irredeemable to have done this XYZ thing,
Yeah.
which he's selfish, definitely. At the beginning of the book, he makes
Right.
a selfish decision to pursue a career at the sake of his family, like,
Yeah.
a commitment he'd made already. And I kind of reflected back on that afterwards, thinking to myself, like, okay, well, did I write an unlovable character? And then I
Mm.
had to really kind of retool that and be like, oh no, everybody's worthy of love. So number one, like that's got to be number
Right.
one off the bat. And number two, I think what fiction allows us to do is sometimes we see mirrored back at us qualities about ourselves that maybe we wish we didn't have. Maybe
Hmm.
in reading a book, you see a character do something that you've done in the past and you didn't like, or you'd thought about doing, or you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable
Right.
situation to kind of inhabit that POV. And I think some people are like, well, no, I'm a good person. I would never do that. This character's
Right.
wrong. I can't identify with that. But we're also complex.
Yeah.
We do make mistakes. I
Yeah.
had a really lovely reader in a book club one time call my author brand. Essentially, she's like, I've read every one of your books, and if I had to think about it, it's like the thing that ties them all together, even though they're so different, is that like every time the characters, it's like, oh baby, no, don't do that. And she's like, I kind of like that because I know by the end they're going to have learned something. They're going to have
Right.
grown. Like, and I kind of took that little nugget and was like, okay, where's my oh baby no moment? Like, don't do
Yeah.
that. Like, maybe we should try a different way. But it takes a whole book to kind of create the full growth arc. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Honestly, that's great. You should like cross stitch that on a pillow or something. Just like, oh
Oh
baby,
baby
no.
no. I
Yeah.
just loved it because she was so enthusiastic about it. She said it with her full chest in front of a room of people I don't even think she knew very well. And I was just like,
Yeah.
you're right. It's true. Because I'm trying to write characters that are like me and like the people I know.
Hmm.
And I don't know a perfect person.
Right.
I'm
Right.
probably never going to know a perfect person because there isn't one. So they have to make mistakes and be
Yeah.
selfish and be rude and be mean sometimes because we all have a bad day.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to gloss over the bad days in my
Yeah.
fiction either. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, it makes for a more believable HEA too, when they have a bad day and then they work through it with the person or persons they're falling in love with, like that's the whole
absolutely.
point.
I think there are a lot of anti-third act breakup readers out there. And I would never ever say that that is wrong because everybody should find the book that's right for them. And there are so many wonderful authors
Mhm.
out there who don't write that third act conflict. And I say this as a controversial opinion, but I love writing a third act
Yeah.
breakup. And I love it because if you don't take a moment to reflect,
Hmm.
you can't grow. And the reflection moment, like that happens in that third act breakup, even if it's not like a full breakup, even if it's just creating distance, even if it's just like
Yeah.
whatever, it allows that character to recall where we found them at the start
Yeah.
and think about where they want to go.
Yeah.
Because if they don't have that moment, they're basically like, well, I've been great this whole time, but now I
Yeah.
just have someone who loves me, and that's
Oh,
awesome.
okay. Oh,
Oh, okay, love,
whatever.
whatever. Check it off the list.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like the angst. I like a little bit
I
of tug.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I feel like that, yeah. Yeah, I'm very pro third act break. Like I don't think I need like obviously there are books that don't have third act breakups. I can't speak today, and they are wonderful.
Mhm.
I think the backlash against third act breakups comes from, I guess, when they're not done well. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
In terms of like, oh, it's just like miscommunication or like it's something like silly. Because
Yeah.
I think the third act breakup is, I mean, it is the answer to when people criticize romance for being unrealistic or whatever. Like the HEA is unrealistic because like you're not going to be happy ever after, whatever.
Totally.
Whereas the HEA is actually like, okay, yeah, they're every day is not going to be glitters and rainbows, but they're going to be able to work through it because throughout the book they've shown they're able to like love each other through conflict. And
Mhm.
so the third act breakup is like, here's them loving each other through conflict. And so when you don't
Yeah.
have that, I'm like, well,
What's going to happen when you finally hit that
right,
patch? Yeah.
right.
I I think my second controversial opinion as a romance writer and reader, because I obviously read a lot of romance, is that I kind of really love the miscommunication trope.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't say that in the sense that like I love it when it's executed in a way where like someone is concealing their identity or like
Yeah.
those things where it becomes a little gray to me, but I like the miscommunication trope mostly because we don't always say what we mean.
Right.
We don't always know what we mean when we say something.
Yeah.
And giving characters the grace that we give each other is
Yeah.
very helpful, I think, in situations like that. Also, as a neurodivergent person who doesn't always understand, like, it's like
Right.
subtext, these social cues. Aiden has that experience in the book too, where um, Henry a lot of times will say, "It's fine. I'm fine. It's
Right.
fine." And Aiden's like, just tell me what you mean. Fine seems to mean you're great, and it seems to mean you're having a spiraling
Desperately unhappy.
episode.
Yeah.
So, how do I know what you mean, and how can I support you in that moment if you're not communicating with me?
Right.
And I think communication is a big barrier for a lot of relationships. And so,
Yeah.
mirroring that in fiction gives readers the experience to say,
Hmm.
where am I struggling? Where might I be
Right.
better at this? I think romance is a cool tool for
Yeah.
imparting lessons, but in a cozy cotton candy package.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like, there's cozy cotton candy readers, and then there's, books about serial killers finding love. And it's like, like you
Yeah.
said,
I
everyone
mean,
deserves an HEA, even a serial killer.
I just feel like we're all coming into romance with this sense of understanding that, well, yes, we have to suspend our disbelief. Yes, it's wish fulfillment, but it's grounded in real emotions that real human beings feel. And that is what you can take with you when you close the book.
Hmm.
Because I think about all my favorite romance novels, and it's like, to take a popular example, it's like, I'm never going to be a prince, like, but I can know what it feels like to have familial obligation on your shoulders and
Mm,
how not meeting expectations might influence my relationships.
right.
Those are things we can all take with us if we strip away the higher stakes, the
Right.
flashy set pieces.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the mannequin's never going to come to life. I mean, hopefully. Your book was very wonderful, but the idea of the mannequin coming to life just terrifies me.
I completely understand where you're coming from. It is very uncanny. I had a funny experience where I had taken a class while I was working on this book. So I was already mid working on it. I'm not sure if I had drafted it and turned it in, so I was
Hmm.
waiting on edits or what. But I took a class basically on this Carmen Maria Machado, who wrote Her Body and Other Parties, talking about how every story is a ghost story. Doesn't matter if it's a horror book, doesn't matter if it's a romance, doesn't matter if it's a comedy, doesn't matter if it's a family drama. Everybody's haunted by something. And in that course, I we read some kind of philosophical writings on the idea of the uncanny. And the uncanny
Hmm.
is the inanimate springing to life because we're made up of parts and we have a consciousness. So what do we not yet know about the universe? And how is that
Right.
is it whimsical and cool or is it creepy and unsettling? Like, how do
Right.
we navigate those two things? But I kind of just, I don't know, something about it lives kind of rent free in my head to the point that I can hold and love life sized and can want Tyra Banks to pop up in
Yes.
my house.
Yeah.
But then there's like also this like horrifying Daphne du Maurier short story where like this woman's in love with a mannequin and we don't know if it has a consciousness and like we're only getting an
Yeah.
outsider's perspective on it and he goes mad because he's in love with her but she's in love with the mannequin and you're like, "Oh no." So this book
Yeah.
definitely is sits more on the side of life sized, I will say.
Yes. Yeah. It's more Tyra Banks
So
and Lindsay Lohan.
yeah, we don't need to have an existential crisis while reading it, but you could there's a world where I could like deconstruct this story and like set it at Halloween and make it really and
Right.
it would probably scare rather than
Right.
delight.
Right. Well, it's like when you see like, oh, I edited this rom-com to look like a horror movie. Like you see
Mhm.
those like a horror movie trailer or whatever. And I mean, romance and horror are two sides of the same coin, I feel like a lot of the time. Not just because I feel like they're the two genres that get dunked on the most by everyone
Mhm.
else. But yet, no, that's really fascinating to like to hear you, I mean, yeah, to describe about how like you have a concept and it can go left or it can go right and end up in two wildly different places, eliciting wildly different feelings with wildly different themes.
Totally. And I completely agree with what you were saying of the two sides of the coin because the editor that I was working with on my debut novel, Never Been Kissed, we had talked a lot about that she had mostly edited romance and horror. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. Like, how do you navigate doing those two things? And I think when we talked about it a little bit more, we kind of came to the conclusion that they're both so visceral and emotion
Yes.
forward. They're both about the body. They're both
Yes.
about how our body experiences things and what, what it can do, what, limits the mortal
Yeah.
being has. Like
Yeah.
they're just being explored in kind of two very different
Hmm.
mediums, and yet they have so much crossover. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense when like I hear so many times that like, especially like with the rise of dark romance and stuff, it's
Right.
like, it makes sense that people who liked horror and liked
Right.
romance should have something married between the two because it's giving you the adrenaline thrill,
Yeah.
but also that like serotonin, dopamine boost, oxytocin
Yeah.
boost. You know what I mean? Like you're getting two sides of the same
Yeah.
coin, exactly like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. No, when you were like saying that it's like viscerally emotional. Like that was exactly before you said that, like the word visceral also like popped up in my mind because it really, yeah, it really is like getting down both of them to like the meat and potatoes, like the core of like what it means to be human in like the best sense and the worst sense.
Yeah, I mean, completely. I still think about the first time that I read Alexis Hall's boyfriend material,
Hmm.
and I was not yet quite as versed on romance structure. So when the third act breakup came in that book, and I felt like the bottom dropped out, I remember my chest just like I was like, oh, it
Yeah.
just clenched, and I was like, no, like everything was going so well. Like, how could this? And I feel the same way when I read like Paul Tremblay or Chuck Tingle. I mean, not Chuck Tingle's
Chuck
self-published works, but
Tinkles,
Chuck Tingle's
yeah.
horror works, like those things where it's like you feel this sense of clenching dread when the bottom drops
Hmm.
out on something where you think you're safe, but you're not. Being vulnerable is just as scary as
Yeah.
running from some, I'm actually not gonna, I was gonna say, never mind. You know what? Being vulnerable is a scary feeling and
Yes.
could be likened to situations you find in horror. Yeah.
Running from a serial killer.
That is
Yeah.
what I was gonna say.
Right.
But now they've just been
Right.
married in
No.
books already, so it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I respect you and anyone who can and does enjoy horror.
Hmm.
I respect the horror genre from like way over here, from like
Okay.
100 miles back. I'm like,
Hmm.
not for me. Can't.
Yeah.
I'm so bad with horror that my friend, for like her capstone like thesis project, videotaped me watching a horror movie and like measured my vitals to be like,
Oh,
look how scared she is.
okay. This sounds a little traumatic, but
It was
for
very traumatic for
research,
me. She got an A though, so
it was all worth it, I guess. Then
yeah,
in that
right.
sense, I used to be very, very averse to horror to the point that I, like, as a child, was just like, wouldn't even go into a Halloween store. Like, I had to buy my
Oh
Halloween costume
wow.
online. Like, I was like, I don't want to see the spooky, scary, motion sensor, none of that. I don't want to see it. I don't
Yeah.
want to interact with it, nothing. But as I got older and the more I started kind of exploring more and learning about myself, I think what I've found is that, like, this might sound a little, I'm not even sure, but the idea is that, like, a lot of times when I read something or watch a horror movie, it's like my imagination could supply something 17 times scarier. And I
Hmm.
don't mean that in the sense that, like, I would be an excellent horror writer, because I don't think I
Right.
would
No.
be. I just think like, my brain, whether it's anxiety or what,
Yeah.
can create these, like, really drastic, scary outcomes sometimes. And so when I'm reading these stories, I know what I'm doing is just giving myself the safety of this
Mm.
experience of fiction. And what is that teaching me about me? Is it
Hmm.
thrilling me, or is it kind of social commentary? Is it telling me something about trauma? Like, I just think there's a lot of layers to every genre. And so, like, I think I became kind of a horror reader and champion. And I don't read a lot, but when I do,
Right.
because I see so many mirrors in romance, and because when I see people cheerleading romance, and I wish more people, even still, would cheerlead romance,
Hmm.
I'm like, these other commercial genre
Right.
really, they need their vocal supporters, because they're not lesser because they have story beats. They're not lesser because they're plot forward. They're not lesser because maybe they're not as, crisp on the sentence level or whatever, which is just a
Which,
generalization.
like, sometimes they are a lot of the
A
times.
lot of the
We
time they
know that.
are.
Yeah.
Oh no. And I think from a craft level, everything that reads easy was hard.
Hmm.
If you have a completely smooth reading experience and you come out of that book and you say 3 stars, easy read, what, that author probably toiled away
Right.
over making the experience that digestible, that
Right.
enjoyable, that, like,
Right.
some books wash over you like a, lazy river, and other books take you
Yeah.
down like a tidal wave, and both do their job.
Yeah.
So sometimes I kind of wish readers would think, like, okay, is this book a tidal wave, or is it meant to be like a
Right.
pond? Am I wading
Yeah.
into it, or should I be struggling against it?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes it's easier to say, I struggled against it, 5 stars, changed my life.
Right.
I think the book you wade into probably also changed your life and your perspective, just in quieter ways.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I don't, this is why I don't rate books because it's just, it's also just so much like, there are books that I read, like, for example, Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Mhm.
I remember I started reading that. I read like the first chapter and I was like, I don't think this is for me. It felt, I mean, that book, it's adult, but it's like new adult. So there is kind of, there's a YA to it because the
Mhm.
characters are like 21.
Mhm.
And I remember I read the first chapter and I was like, this isn't for me. And then I went back like a year later and I read it and I was like, why is this book making me cry? I was like, I'm being called out. Like Casey McQuiston's calling me out. Like, what's going on? Like, I loved it. You know what I mean? And so it's so like the book is different depending on who you are when you read it and when you read, like, yeah, it's
No, completely. No, and I'm such a huge proponent that the right book finds you at the right time, which
mhm.
is why I'm like, don't go into a bookstore with me if you don't want to spend money, because I'm like, you should buy the book. Because even if you're not going to read it tomorrow, even if you're not going to read it a year from
Right.
now, you probably will pick it up eventually. And if you don't, and you put it in a little free library or donate it to Goodwill or whatever,
Mhm.
it's going to serve some sort of purpose for the person who finds it
Right.
afterwards. But also, to that same extent, there was a great reel, and I wish I knew who the creator was, that went around on Instagram a little while ago that was basically like, I was with a friend at a bookstore and I recommended a book to her that I love. It's my favorite book in the world. I said, I think you'll like this
Mhm.
book. And before she checked out at the counter, she looked it up and said, oh, I'm sorry, it has a 3.5 on Goodreads, and I only read books that are 4 and above. Now, if a book has 10,000 ratings and it has a 3.5, I mean, that means it's a pretty even split, that there's a huge
Right.
chunk of people who think this is an incredible piece that really affected
Right.
them, and maybe some people who it didn't work for. Um, but two-pronged there is you're not going to take the advice of your best friend who recommended this book to you, who knows you really well and thinks you
Right.
will like it, and you would rather trust the opinions of strangers on the internet that an
Right.
algorithm kind of like, just did some math on. But regardless of that, I also just think that there is this level of being. I read a wonderful book, which I'm also going to forget the name of, but I believe it's called something along the lines of like Bring the House Down.
Hmm.
And it was about a theater critic who goes to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and is kind of wrestling with how do we critique art or give it a star
Hmm.
rating, because giving it a bad star rating can dissuade people from engaging with that art, and it might
Right.
be 5 stars to them. And I will
Hmm.
never forget reading this one little like monologue she goes on. Basically, she's drunk, but she says
Yeah.
something along the lines of being like, "Well, I don't understand. When I go on Amazon and I'm buying a toaster oven, and it only wants to show me the 5 star toaster ovens, what if my 5 star toaster oven is the 3 star toaster oven?
Yeah.
But I'm only being shown the other ones because like when did
Yeah.
5 stars become the average? 3 stars should be the
Right.
average. And anything that exceeds that or falls below that
Yeah.
is, stuff we can discuss, stuff that might be divisive, stuff that might be, hard to, beautiful
Hmm.
outside, didn't actually toast. Great. Like then we've got somewhere to work from.
Right.
Um, but I think about that a lot now because, I understand as a writer, I'm putting books out in the world. It's not always going to hit the way
Hmm.
I think it might for some readers. Super grateful to the readers who give a chance on my work and take the time to reflect on it and rate it and review it, because what that
Hmm.
does is it's just giving more data,
Hmm.
because the right reader knows how to take that data,
Hmm.
negative or positive, good or bad, and say, oh, wait, that thing you didn't like about that book? That's like something in my favorite book. So I think I should probably read that,
Yeah.
because who knows what that's going to do for me, even if it didn't hit for
No.
you. So,
A lot of times I go right to the 1 star reviews. They're like, I don't like this. And I'm like, oh, so I'm gonna read that next now because I actually love that.
yeah, I also think that like any piece of art that makes you feel so strongly that you would give
Mhm.
it a 1 star, you had an experience. It's not an experience you liked, clearly, but it was an experience. And
Yeah.
to me, art is about giving the audience or the reader or the viewer an experience.
Mhm.
I did an interview once with Lauren of Christina Lauren, and she said this beautiful thing that I never forget, which is that as basically as a writer, all I'm responsible for is giving the reader a map.
Mhm.
Where they go from there, it's not up to me to decide. I can't dictate that. I don't know what their frame of mind will be. But as long as I give them the map and the directions and they make it to the final destination, the journey they go on is out of my
Right.
hands. And I think about that a lot because books can be prickly sometimes. Books can be
Mhm.
pacey or scary or hard to wrestle with,
Yeah.
and but that doesn't make them lesser because of those qualities. Those qualities are baked in by the
Mhm.
author so that you continue to follow the map towards the final destination.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's all just kind of really beautiful and fun. Like writing stories is very cathartic, but also just such a great way for connection. So I always
Mhm.
feel so grateful when anyone even takes the time to write a 1 star review, because you gave the work a chance.
Right.
Maybe it didn't meet
Right.
your expectations, but as long as I can say at the end of the day that I told the story I wanted to tell, then we've all done our jobs, quote unquote. Nobody has a job. You don't
Right.
have to read anything, but I
Yeah.
hope you do. And I hope and even when it's not my work, I always love to talk about when someone says like, "Oh, I just read this really great book." I always love to ask like, "Well, how did it make you feel?"
Yeah.
Because you could say it's a great book, but I want to know how it made you feel. Because when I sit down to open a book, I'm looking for an emotional experience. That's just the kind of
Hmm.
reader that I am. And
Hmm.
everyone's different in that respect too.
Right. Right. So you mentioned Matthew Prince as one
Hmm.
of your other Christmas movies, Christmas books.
That would be
And then
nice if it was a movie.
yeah, one of these days. And then you also have the Marius Misters.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit about that
Yeah,
book.
so The Merriest Misters is my queer marriage and trouble romance, which is about Patrick and Quinn. They are newly married, struggling to reconnect, and are kind of suffering under this like mountainous mortgage. And on Christmas Eve, after kind of having this big fight, one of them accidentally frying pans Santa in the head,
Ah.
thinking he's an intruder, a la the Santa Claus. And they're basically greeted by an elf that says like, okay, like don the suit, get in the sleigh, save Christmas, or Christmas will be canceled for every place in the world that Santa has not yet
Yeah.
gotten to. Um, so they kind of strap in and they say, all right, we're going to do this for
Um,
the children of the world. But instead of going back to New Jersey at the end, they get rerouted to the North Pole where they are told that if they don't assume the roles of Santa and Mrs. Claus for the coming year, the following Christmas will also be canceled. Um, and so what this does is it forces these two to kind of reconsider their marriage and their relationship, but it also gives the North Pole its very first Merriest Mister, which is Quinn, who is Mrs. Claus, quote unquote, for the very first time
yeah.
they've had a gay Santa. And weirdly enough, it was inspired by Vice President Kamala Harris and her husband, Doug Emhoff, because I was looking at pictures of him thinking, huh, what must he be experiencing in a role that has historically been filled by
Yeah.
someone of a gender he doesn't identify with? Yeah, so it leads to a lot of like quirk, a lot of like funny little North Pole shenanigans. And it's just like my queer version of the Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but now I'm like extra excited
Oh, thanks.
to
It was
read it.
fun. It's a
Yeah.
fun story. And I totally wanted to write a story for the very first time which I'd never done. So it's still a romance, it's a marriage and trouble story. But I kind of wanted to write a story that's like, what happens after the HEA? You know, a lot of
Hmm.
times the HEA is the getting married. And we get flashbacks in the Marriage Misters, so we get to know how they got together and what the relationship was like. But we get to see them fall in love with each other in a new location, in a new way, with new respect and love for each other. And
Hmm.
personally, like my opinion on love is that love is not a static experience. You fall in love with people over and over and over again because we are constantly evolving and changing.
Hmm.
And that is the one thing, regrettably, fiction books cannot do is that they can't just like regenerate and follow unless it's like
Right.
decade spanning series, they can't follow these characters forever,
Yeah.
right? We can write fan fiction, we can imagine what they're like, we can make
Yeah.
a movie version or write an epilogue or whatever, but once the book's over, it's over.
Hmm.
And so for me, writing The Marriest Misters was my experience of being like, okay, what if I had written the romance novel version of Patrick and Quinn's story? And what if now they're in the North Pole
Yeah.
and they're thinking about breaking up, but now they kind of need to save Christmas? What would that be
Right.
like? It was a fun challenge.
Yeah. Suddenly an elf is giving them marriage counseling. Like what's going on?
I mean, pretty much. And
Yeah.
it's like, is my calling running a toy workshop? Who knows? Like it's one of those very outlandish. I always feel like I write things that have an element of camp to them.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a little bit of just outlandishness that grounded in real human emotion, but just
Yeah.
like decorated with like the most amount of frosting you could possibly have.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, that's part of the reason that I wanted to have you come on for like this specific episode where, and we haven't talked too much about them, but like we talk about like campy Christmas romance and like why, I mean, you have had one, correct me if I'm wrong. Have you, for the last 3 years, like you've had one come out every
Yeah,
year?
yeah. So
Yes.
Matthew Prince came out in 2022. So yeah, 2022, 2023. Wait, what year is it? 2020?
2025. Okay. Almost every year.
Almost every year. I had one
Almost
out
every
last year,
year.
one this year. Yes.
Yeah. So like what draws you to Campy Christmas? Like, why do you keep coming back to that?
I think because I mean I'm a December baby, so that's number one. Like I
Mm.
always kind of glom my birthday in with the holiday season, and that just makes it kind of like one big 4 week, 4 week, 5 week, 6 week celebration. And so that time of year has always been kind of very magical and exciting to me. But also at the same time, I think the holidays are very much a pressure cooker. People are simultaneously so stressed and yet lighter, sometimes
Mhm.
kinder, sometimes more goofy and accepting. There's something about the holidays, twinkly lights, earlier sundown, whatever, that kind of makes people reflect and reevaluate and get together with their loved ones. And I think what that does is it brings out unique sides to people.
Mhm.
And sometimes they can be like really outlandish and silly and foolish. And so when I sit down to write these stories, I'm always thinking about emotion again times 12.
Mhm.
Emotions can bubble up so high. And I think about a lot of my favorite Christmas movies over, the course of time, which, Elf is, hysterical,
Right.
but is really grounded in somebody looking for home and family
Right.
and who am I? But then like on the opposite side of that, I have like a deep love of the made for TV movie. Like I
Yeah.
have a deep obsession with a movie from like 2007 called Holiday in Handcuffs, which
Okay.
is a movie from ABC Family, back when ABC Family was ABC Family
Yeah.
and not Freeform, about Melissa Joan Hart taking Mario Lopez hostage at
Yes.
gunpoint.
Okay, I knew that that sounded familiar, and as soon as you said Melissa Joan Hart, I was like, I remember seeing the commercials for that.
If you have not watched this movie, I could not recommend it enough. I think I've watched it every Christmas since 2007 because she is at the end of her rope and she truly takes Mario Lopez hostage at gunpoint. The gun's not loaded, but he doesn't know that. And takes him to like this remote cabin in the woods with her family. And like, yeah, is there a little bit of, like Stockholm syndrome in there because he's like falling in love with her and then they're getting to know each other, but he has a girlfriend. Like, it's a whole thing. But I truly like it makes me laugh. It makes
Mhm.
me admittedly maybe tear up a little bit because there are
Yeah.
these feelings that are just so genuinely human wrapped up in a package
Mhm.
that is so beyond ridiculous that you can't help but love it.
Right.
I pair that viewing almost every year with a different one starring Christina Milian called Snow Globe about a woman who gets trapped inside a snow globe. And there's like a whole fantasy Christmas world stuck in the snow globe. It's outlandish, but the whole movie is about similar to A Mannequin for Christmas.
Right.
I wish my family was perfect. Why can't my family and my boyfriend be perfect? And then she goes to
Right.
the perfect Christmas world and it's like, wait, I can't have 7 turkeys a day. I don't want to ice skate all afternoon. I need a
Yeah.
job and a life and a purpose and some conflict, or else
Yeah.
I'm just a paper cutout, or whatever. So they're just, I don't know. The Christmas season is just like rife with like goofy shenanigans.
Yeah.
And yet it all comes back to connection. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a limitless well of inspiration.
Yeah. And I do feel like Christmas in particular, and like the winter holidays, I feel like this is kind of also New Year's and like Hanukkah and even like Thanksgiving.
Mm,
We're a lot more generous in terms of like how silly we allow stories around that time to be.
hmm
Like something around 4th of July or even like Memorial Day or like Valentine. You know what I mean? Like they're in general not as popular. People aren't writing yearly books about 4th of July,
hmm
understandably. But,
I mean,
but there's like
yeah.
a silliness that's like allowable in December when it's cold outside, when there's a little bit of magic that we don't accept like elsewhere.
Yeah, I have to imagine it probably stems back to, regardless of what you celebrate, the idea that like a lot of us are still clinging to the childhood feeling of waking
Mhm.
up to Santa having come. or, whatever the cultural equivalent could be across the world, because that like childish spark of joy, like it doesn't
Mhm.
leave you. It just morphs and changes and grows and recedes and comes back. And I think at Christmas time, a lot of us let that come forward. A
Mhm.
lot of us embrace that side of us a little bit more. And so, like, it's so, so great when we can tell these kinds of stories to adults and feel like they're for adults, right? Like, we can still have whimsical little metaphor allegories, magical figures, It's also to say that, like, the romantasy girlies are reading about riding dragons
Right.
all year long. So let's embrace this kind of like magical realism, speculative
Yeah.
stuff, because there's so much magic all around us, in the sense that it's
Yeah.
like we can find these sparks. It might not be literal, right? I mean, you can't make a wish on magic hour and
Yeah.
suddenly have a boyfriend, but what might the natural world inspire you to change about yourself or your lifestyle or your job or
Right.
whatever, that might lead you down new paths that bring you,
Yeah.
people and experiences you didn't expect.
Yeah. And then especially like how you're doing making those stories queer and
Mhm.
like and telling those stories through a community that for a long time. I mean, I also love made for TV movies and like
Mhm.
Hallmark didn't have its first like gay main couple until like what 2 years ago or something. And
Yeah.
even now it's like you get one you get one per season or whatever.
Yeah.
So seeing happy queer couples
Yeah. I
in
think it's
these
super important.
campy stories is like extra delightful.
I also think that, like, Holiday in Handcuffs, not to go, not everything's about Holiday in Handcuffs, but
Everything is about holiday in
everything
handcuffs.
is about Holiday in Handcuffs or A Mannequin for Christmas. I should plug
Right.
that. No, there's a queer side character. Melissa Joan Hart
Yeah.
has a queer brother in that movie, and I think in 2007 that was really important to me, because
Hmm.
I don't think I'd ever seen a queer character in a made-for-TV Christmas movie, and there probably were. I just hadn't noticed or
Yeah.
been exposed to it. Um, which is why, like, when I sat down to write You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince, which strangely was actually the book that I sold for the first time to become an author, like, that was the
Hmm.
book that got my foot in the door that we sold. And then I went back and wrote Never Been Kissed, because the publisher wanted to introduce me to kind of a wider set before I put out a Christmas book. And I truly wrote that book over the COVID pandemic during lockdown, because
Hmm.
I had always wanted to see a queer couple at the center of a made-for-TV Christmas movie, and it just like
Hmm.
hadn't come across my radar yet. And I said, okay, well, I don't know how to write a screenplay. I don't know a director. I don't live in Los Angeles. But what I do have is a literary agent, and what I can do is use this time in this
Yeah.
fantasy world of Wind River, Massachusetts, where this spoiled rich boy and this like down to earth college student fall in love while planning a charity gala.
Hmm.
And it felt very cathartic and exciting to me, because it was like, oh, we can do this. Why haven't we been doing this the
Yeah.
whole time? Why are we not
Right.
sharing these kinds of love stories? Because love is the universal theme of these stories. It's not the kind of people, it's not the way they celebrate or who they are. It's love. So if
Hmm.
love is the theme of all these stories, we need to tell it in all the myriad
Yeah.
of ways it can be expressed.
I remember I was talking to Alison Cochran once and she had like a
Mm.
Christmas, a sapphic
Yeah,
Christmas come out. And that was like right around the time that the Kristen Stewart Aubrey Plaza were they're
yeah,
not actually the couple, like that one that like
yeah,
all us lesbians were like, um
yeah.
we don't like this one. So like sometimes they're also a response to, a movie coming out and you're like, oh, actually, that was not what should happen. I'm gonna write my own.
Yeah. Well, that's actually funny you say that, because I had before I started writing adult romance, I was writing young adult, and
Hmm.
I was out on submission, which is part of the publishing process with your agent, with a YA novel that was like slowly dying. And I was like, I'm gonna write this adult, new adult romance, Christmas time, whatever. just purely for me. It may never amount to anything. It's just going to be fun
Mhm.
and exciting because I want to see this in the world. Um, and strangely enough, one of the editors that had passed on my YA novel, but had said, like, I really liked the writing. I thought it was really funny. Like, if Timothy writes anything else in the future, like, please think of me. I would love to consider it. I just didn't get enough yeses offered for publication.
Yeah.
Um, there used to be a thing called manuscript wish list back when Twitter was still Twitter.
Yeah. Yes.
And she tweeted something along the lines of being like, "Ugh, I'm desperate for happiest season, but from the Dan Levy character's perspective." And I was like, oh, I wrote it. Like I already wrote it.
Yeah.
I was like, take it, package it, send it to her, like let her know. And that did ultimately end up to my first book deal. And so
Amazing.
I also was in that subset of people who like, had struggled with happiest season for what it
Yeah.
was. And I admire them for telling the story they wanted to tell, but it just didn't hit with
Yeah.
me particularly. But I was able to kind of channel that into something really exciting and fun and new and a whole career path for me. So if anyone out there is also listening and you ever struggle with a piece of media that you really just like, "Ugh," like take it, make it your own, break it
Right.
apart. We all are just telling the same version of the same or different versions of
Right.
the same three stories. I wrote The Merriest Misters partially about Doug Emhoff, but also because a certain actor in a certain Christmas classic that I did love but have a hard time watching now,
Right.
I was like, I'm gonna rub my gay little hands all over that. Because how do we remix these stories and
Right.
continue to tell them? I mean, it
Right.
sounds so silly, we're not the Greeks, we're not whatever, but and maybe the Santa Claus is not the same as
Yeah.
Euripides, but we should still continue to share the whimsy. We should
Yeah.
remix it and recreate it and allow that magic and joy to filter through because I don't know. Sometimes we go into these like dark periods and it feels like everyone's like, "Oh, I just want something joyful. I just want something happy. I just want something whatever." It's like, it's there. Just dig for it. People are making it. I
Right.
promise. Might not be
Right.
the first thing on your algorithm. Go to the
Right.
17th thing on the algorithm and it's going to give you exactly what you want,
Right.
you know.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So, shall we recommend a few holiday
Oh my gosh.
romances? You're like, you're ready.
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, first and foremost, you've already said it, but I will say Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane. I love Allison. I think Allison is an incredible writer. I think she writes queer characters with such nuance and heart. I also tell you from a perspective of having read some early versions of the book, I was like, it's one of those stories where it's like, this could have went in 17 different directions, and the direction you
Yeah.
took it in surprised me and delighted me in equal measure.
Yeah.
But I want you to write the 18 other versions of the book that also exist in my imagination so I can like do a choose your own adventure every time I
Right.
revisit this. I just love I just love one of those like instant connections that like you fall away from, but then they jump back into your life in a really surprising way. And I think
Mhm.
she's written that in just kind of like a chef's kiss fashion.
Yeah.
Also, TJ Alexander's Second Chances in Newport Stephen, which is tells the story of a trans main character who comes back
Mhm.
to his hometown in Florida for Christmas and runs into his high school boyfriend. But this
Okay.
was pre gender affirmation surgery. So they
Okay.
were together before a lot of life happened and how they reconnected them. And the love interest is now a single dad, and it's a whole thing. And
Mhm.
it's such a beautiful story. And it's just one of those things that you read that kind of reminded me a little bit like The Family Stone. It reminded me a little bit of
Mhm.
like stories that have these like large families that kind of like map out a kind of bittersweet but beautiful story. And I'll recommend one. Well, I'll recommend two more. I have two more.
Okay.
First, The Nightmare Before Christmas by Sarah Rosh, which is Halloween Prince Falls for the Son of Santa Claus.
Yes. I remember seeing
Oh,
that. Yeah.
in a world
Amazing.
where every holiday is a kingdom and they trade in joy. And Sarah and I connected
Oh.
because I sold the Mary's Misters right around the same time she sold Nightmare Before Christmas. And so we were both like, oh, we're both writing Gay Santa. Like, how did you do it? Like, let's read your book. Like, what did you do? They're like, could not be more different. Like, they're the
hmm
on opposite ends of the spectrum. And yet, we
Right.
both had that kind of whimsical idea about it.
Speaking of gay Santa, Her Night with Santa by Adriana Herrera, which is Sapphic
Oh,
Santa's
yes.
phenomenal. Listener, I've done a whole episode on it, which will be linked below, so I won't go into too details, but like,
No. Oh my gosh. And Adriana Herrera, in the oh gosh, I think she has a story in the Amore Actually collection.
yes, that sounds right.
But I remember reading the More Actually collection when it came out, and that is just a lovely, lovely collection of shorter kind of stories set around the holidays, and those are really, really beautiful. But the last one that I was thinking of, I will recommend it until the day that I die. It is if you like bananas, right? So if you read A Mannequin for Christmas and you say, I need something more like this,
Hmm.
but like if you take where Mannequin for Christmas is and you turn that up 10 more notches, you would get Just Like Magic by Sarah Hogel. So Sarah Hogel wrote You Deserve Each Other, which is a great, great book that's going to
Yes.
be a Netflix rom-com with Penn Badgley and Megan Fahey. So like
Yes.
this is like big book, right? She wrote a Christmas book where a kind of down on her luck, embittered woman accidentally summons the spirit of Christmas by playing a Mariah Carey vinyl record backwards. And he manifests in human form. Now, he's atmospheric particles, mind you. So he's now manifested in human form. And they fake date for Christmas.
Perfect.
There is a hot air balloon. There is sword fighting. There is a really romantic scene in a Cracker Barrel. Like it, but I don't know what was going through Sarah's mind when she wrote the book, but I'm just so glad that she did because
Right.
every holiday season, if I am in a bookstore and I see someone looking at the Christmas books, I'm like, take it
Like,
home with you.
let me
You
just,
absolutely need to read it. Like it's just bananas. It's bananas in the best
I love
way, and
that.
I will never be over it.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love when, all right, I have a few and I'm gonna go from most bananas to least so we can
Okay.
go up and then we can come back down. So the
I'm
most
ready.
bananas is called Love Lights by Emily Antoinette.
Okay.
And it's an MM Mothman romance. And they're fated
Incredible.
mates.
Perfect.
And
Sold. Done.
it's wonderful. I think it's a novella, so it's short, it's
Hmm.
easy, it'll go down real smooth.
Excellent.
Like just like Mothman. Um, and then
Perfect.
I have Eight Kinky Nights by Zan West, which is a
Yes.
sapphic, basically like kink lessons, one for each night of Hanukkah, like
Hmm.
roommates.
Oh, yeah.
Delightful.
Excellent.
Delightful. And I recently did an episode on older, I put this in heavy quotes,
Yeah.
heroines in romance, and they're in their, I think, late 30s and early 40s. Like those are older
I think so. Yeah.
characters as well. So if you want characters with life experience, characters with a little seasoning,
Yeah.
there you go. And then my last one, which is bonkers, but not in like a bonker, capital B bonkers way, is just The
Sure.
Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Ali Carter, which is like a
Yeah.
locked room, like murder mystery, like Agatha Christie. Like they're all snowed into like a rich lady's house and then she disappears. And also people are falling in love.
I love that one mostly because I was like, it reminded me of Clue, like the
Yes.
movie Clue. And I was like,
Yeah.
you always kind of feel like in the movie Clue, it's like some of them have chemistry, like there
Right.
could have been a romance in here. And so I really appreciated that book for really just being like, you could be solving a mystery and
Yeah.
falling in love.
Yeah. Allie Carter's great. I'm really glad Carter has like made the jump to romance because she's bringing it.
Yeah. Oh, totally, totally, totally. Also, I was thinking when you just said it's Eight Kinky Nights, right?
Yes.
Yes, I remember reading that when that one came out and I really enjoyed it. But if you like older protagonists, Annabeth Albert wrote an MM called The Geek Who Saved Christmas, which is
Mm.
like a neighbor's Christmas light display sort of romance that like
Oh.
it's very sweet. Annabeth Albert has like a whole bunch of Christmas books, MM Christmas books out, and just like each one delights me more than the last, mostly because like they are the kind of like hot cocoa books where like you can sit down with it and like by the time you finish your mug of hot cocoa, like you're pretty much almost done with it
Hmm.
and you're just you're not going to get up to get another cup. Like you're just going to finish it because like you're
Right.
just so emotionally invested in these characters.
Yeah.
It's really lovely.
Yeah. So there's your holiday reading schedule,
Yeah,
listener.
you got a lot to
You
read.
know,
Yeah, people got to start like
just right,
immediately.
right, right. Immediately.
Get them all in.
Right. And you know what? Just like my family does, you can continue, like we continue to watch the Hallmark Christmas movies after Christmas, continue to read these after
If they
Christmas.
start before Halloween, you are within your right to watch them like through February. I feel like at this point, it's like
Right.
they make so
Yeah.
many. You
They
can't fit
make
them all
so
in the month of
many.
December. So
Yeah. Well, they
watch
made,
them
I
all.
just, one year I discovered when I got, oh, I forget which app it's called. It was some app that gave me access to the Hallmark Channel and allowed me to like
Yeah.
record like some of the movies. I discovered that they make those movies all year round and they have like it's like basically the same plot, but just like, oh, now it's the spring flower show instead of like the Christmas festival, whatever.
Oh
And I was like, oh,
yes.
this is delightful.
If I put one plug in anybody's ear, it's that Hallmark now has a streaming service. It's called Hallmark Plus. And on Plus is an excellent reality show hosted by Jonathan Bennett of Mean Girls fame called Finding Mr. Christmas.
Oh
And
my
it is like, I think it's 12 just like hunky actor, model, firefighters competing with each other to be the lead of a Hallmark Christmas movie
God.
that will come out. So like they must film it like in the summer. And
Right.
then like whoever wins films a movie before that Christmas season. So like it's airing now, season two, and then like at the end of season two, you'll find out who wins, and then like a couple weeks later, that movie will drop. So you'll get to see that person in their first movie. Hysterical. They have to like do ice skating lessons and like create ugly sweaters and do monologues and like kiss someone on camera and make it not look weird. It's very fun. Also, a lot of men and a lot of straight men, I mean, there's a lot of queer contestants too, but a lot of straight men showing a level of emotion I wish we saw from straight men more often on my television. I was like, yeah, bud, I want to see that emotion. Tell us about your marriage that didn't work out and the dog you don't see anymore, and how you're, using this show as an experience to, rekindle your love of, romance. Yes, I love that. So anyway, it's
I
excellent. Not a movie, not a book,
No,
but
but
definitely worth
listener,
watching.
you can't see my face during but the entire time I'm like mouth open, just like grinning the entire time you're talking about that.
It's so
That sounds
good.
so delightful.
It
I
is.
have to watch it. I'm
Do
gonna
it.
I'm gonna put my family have their holiday in handcuffs and then make them watch that with me.
You're gonna be like, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. Holiday in Handcuffs is really
I'm so
gonna
sorry.
get some shocks, but you'll really drive it home with Finding Mr. Christmas.
Right. But like, and for
Yeah,
the grand finale, we're gonna watch
we're
this.
gonna watch just
We're
10
gonna a
hours of
whole
television.
season. Have
Yeah,
fun.
perfect.
All right. So, Timothy, where can they find you after they finish reading A Mannequin for Christmas and all of your other books?
Yeah, you can find me on my website, which is timothyjanovsky.com. My newsletter is there. I don't send it super often, but when I do, I promise it's fun. You can also find me on Instagram at Timothy Janovsky, and you can find me on Instagram. I'm sorry, I literally just said Instagram, TikTok as Timothy Janovsky Books. That's the places I'm most active.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And before I let you go, I have to ask, what is the last book that made you want to stay up all night reading? You didn't actually have to have stayed up, but it made you,
Yeah.
you were like,
I have to finish it. I just finished reading Wreck by Catherine Newman, which is her sequel to the book she put out last year, which is called Sandwich, which is a book. This book, Wreck, follows the same family around the Halloween, Thanksgiving, into the Christmas
mm,
season. Um, there has been a death in the family. There has also been an accident in town, which is tangentially related to them, but we don't know why. Um, and is basically about the matriarch of that family kind of
mhm.
wrestling with the fact that her children are adults. One of them has moved away, one of them is about to. She's taking care of her ailing father, and she's trying to figure out what family means while also kind of struggling with some health problems. It's very multi-layered, but it's in that sense where I was like so deeply invested in the characters
Yeah.
that I was like, I have to know what happens to them. Although, listener, if you read it, I will say, if Catherine Newman ever hears this, I love her. I think she's an excellent writer. I've read all of her fiction. the amount of eating in a bed in her work
Oh
truly is, I just,
no.
that I could never. If someone ate in my bed, I'd be
No.
like, oh no, we're done. But it's very, very sweet. And one of those books that just kind of makes you feel affirmed, makes you feel like life
Yeah.
is, can be hard, but it has its brightness and keep going.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
will say I do feel the same way when people have shoes on furniture in books and in real life. I'm like, even if it's just the couch, I'm like, get that off.
I know readers have reader icks. Like I know this is a thing. So I never want to like, yuck someone's yum. It's just like in one scene, you're like, okay, whatever, they're eating in bed. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is the fourth time they're having nachos. And nachos are
Not
like like they're so
nachos.
messy.
Like I get maybe like a I don't know, like a bowl of ice cream if it can like something you can that can stay contained.
Nachos, full
Not
on nachos, and not
nachos.
and more than one person eating them too. One plate, more than one person eating them. That's all I'm saying. They better have stripped the sheets,
Horrific.
cleaned them,
Talk about
whatever.
horror.
You're like,
Talk
that's
about
the extent of
horror.
my horror reading.
That's it. That's We're done.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. This is so much fun.
This was really fun. Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
All right, listener, that was awesome. I hope you have a happy holiday season and you get to read all these cozy little books. I seriously recommend Mannequin for Christmas. That was like, it was so delightful. And I'm so glad I got to talk to Timothy. As always, you can find the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at We Read It One Night. You can find me on threads too at We Read It One Night. You can email me we read it one night at gmail.com. Please leave a rating and review if you haven't already, wherever you're listening. It helps the podcast so much. And if you could download the episode when you're listening, you can delete the download when you're done. I don't want to take up any more of your phone memory. I know that's a precious resource, but downloads are what every podcast app and site uses to decide whether it wants to recommend podcasts to other listeners. So more people can listen to the podcast. Please support it in all the wonderful free ways that you can. And some of the other ways are you could visit the Etsy shop, Evelyn and Adelaide. We have some literary and sapphic and fun designs there. And you can also buy me a coffee at the link in the description of this episode. You're not buying me a literal coffee. It's just like support the podcast for like $5 if you can. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for all your support and Godspeed, comrades.